Episode 7 Gridiron versus Club Football, and why the United States can't be imperialistic based on football or gridiron football popularity around the world. This episode is dedicated to Brent Peacock, Rina Milnoric, Mickey K. Pennington, Dixie Duke, Ashraf Abuzamak, and Sunniva Leivdal. The first main episode explored baseball versus cricket, which was inspired by an old friend's hypothesis regarding how the United States Marine Corps spread baseball around the world, which wasn't true after all. I was inspired to compare gridiron to club football after a dear friend traveled to the 2006 World Cup event in Germany. The episode revealed many unexpected facts about both sports as well as approximate events. So this episode compares North American, or gridiron, to club or association football, soccer in the United States, sports, as well as unraveling many unexpected direct and proximate trivia along the way. North American football has its roots in both rugby and club football sports, courtesy of the New England part of the United States. Walter Camp, a Yale University alumni, is credited as the father of American football. The first college-level football match was between Princeton and Rutgers Universities on November 6, 1869. This sport evolved quite a bit after President Teddy Roosevelt's threats of intervention, mainly due to excessive injuries often highlighted by political comic strips placing a skeleton on the football field. In the 1960s, the National Football League had the American Football League as a competitor, and eventually integrated into its system as the American Football Conference, with the original NFL teams assigned to the National Football Conference. So what one sees today, such as 100-yard fields, fourth downs, the snap, where does that term come from, and 7 unique officials, is more of an adaptation based on laws and lawsuits than anything else. The rules are quite challenging to follow at the beginning though. Each 11-person team has 4 attempts to advance the ball 10 yards, slightly more than 9 meters, before having to either kick the ball downfield or lose the ball to the other team. Each team gets 3 timeouts per half period, and with unused timeouts not carrying over to the second half period, the teams are incentivized to add 6 minutes to the half period, whether needed or not. There are 4 ways to score, which include touchdown, field goal, rush to the end zone, and safety. The field is 100 yards long prior to any scoring opportunity, and 160 feet wide, and is played in conditions as cold as the 1967 NFL Championships, minus 13 degrees Fahrenheit. By the way, it's minus 48 degrees Fahrenheit with wind chill factor. And yes, the Green Bay Packers did beat the Dallas Cowboys, but it was a close call until Bart Starr's quarterback sneak sealed the deal. North American football's popularity in the United States is quite far-reaching as far as culture is concerned. College/university football fans, Roll Tide, Go Longhorns, et al., contribute to so much money via ticket and merchandise sales that many U.S. colleges/universities that are part of NCAA Division I generate sports funding, both collegiate and intramural, for most other sports, primarily based on the gridiron football ticket sales. This is also true for the United States Air Force Academy too. It is not just isolated to the small technical college in northern Colorado Springs, practically Monument. When it is football season and a football game is a home game, the U.S. Naval Academy's Midshipman Brigade they all march, that's right, in dress blues in formation from the quarters to the stadium, all the way from Bancroft Hall, with drums to boot. They all march the 1.2 miles to make their presence known to the visiting team. The NFL's Super Bowl metrics show why halftime commercials are extremely expensive as well. The 2021 metrics include, when you look at the Nielsen's ratings of 92 million viewers, wow, 92 million viewers? That's pretty significant when you think about it, when you compare that to the United States overall 365 million people. But this metric also takes into account viewers from all around the world too. Super Bowl's number 54's in-game advertisement revenue was about 448.7 million. And also, one beer at Raymond James Stadium back then was $13. Wow, better off going off to Oktoberfest in Munich for a liter of beer at that rate. Its popularity is well portrayed in a variety of Hollywood movies too. For example, there was this early 1990s, actually it was a 1991 movie called Necessary Roughness is a movie with Scott Bakula and Sinbad. It's notable for featuring a female kicker, Lucy Draper, played by Kathy Ireland, who steals an extreme amount of happiness from a bully. This theme of using a football, to the non-American player for long-range kicks is also featured in a 2000 movie called The Replacement. Yes, the one with Keanu Reeves and Gene Hackman. Nigel Gruff, a Welshman played by Rhys Ifans, who also is Welsh, completes a 65-yard kick, exceeding last known 64-yard record set by Matt Prater of Denver Broncos in 2013. Must have been windage. Even Weird Al Yankovic produced Sports Song for his 2014 Mandatory Fun album to condense most football cheers songs into "We're great, you suck." Let's consider some basic statistics of the out-of-the-ordinary American football player. Back in the early 1990s, the Chicago Bears had William the Refrigerator Perry, a 6'2" tall, north of 300 pounds, ring size 25, who not only holds the record for the heaviest player to score a touchdown, but is commemorated as a special order G.I. Joe action figure, complete with a jersey number 72. Imagine the refrigerator who's headed to the end zone. Players such as Larry McGrew of the New England Patriots, God rest his soul, learned the hard way what the refrigerator's momentum was all about. Cole R. Blender, a Stats 422 student at University of Idaho, figured out that the average NFL player's height is about 74.14 inches tall and 245.86 pounds, yielding a weight-to-height ratio of 3.32 pounds per inch. Although many football players retire well prior to the year 60s, some of them end up as sports commentators for ESPN. However, there are others who venture and succeed in unrelated activities such as John Elway of the Denver Broncos and car sales business, Mike Ditka of the Chicago Bears with Campbell's Chunky Soup ads, as well as Terry Crews, too many teams to count, and his Old Spice commercials. Oh, okay, the Expendables movie franchise too. Let's not forget Alex Karras of Detroit Lions, who played the role of the dad in the U.S. TV show Webster, featuring the actor Emmanuel Lewis. If the sport is very popular, why isn't it so popular around the world? After all, the U.S. Army joins a long list of invading armies visiting popular tourist attractions such as Europe, South Korea, etc., and others in Italian, and so forth. For a country of about 365 million people, when the NFL is in season, the 32 teams must reduce their roster to 53 players per team, or about 1,700 players. This means that an American has a 1 in 214,706 chance of becoming an NFL football player. It's not just limited to probability. Thanks to laws and lawsuits, the average football player's equipment costs may be anywhere between $1,000 to $2,500 when accounting for customized helmets, uniforms, protective gear, and other, etc. Someone has to pay for that equipment, never mind a NFL license, the Duke football, priced at above $100. Also consider the field goal and how it is constructed. Definitely more expensive than the big club football goal net. Now it's time to look at club or association football, known as soccer in the United States. The Han Chinese, over 2,000 years ago, have records of their version called Kuju. Henceforth, the club football is called Chukgu in Korean. In England, the Cambridge rules of the 19th century did much to codify club football as we know it today. As various nations created its own versions of club football leagues, Fédération Internationale de Football Association, FIFA, was organized in 1904, ultimately leading to what everyone knows as the Triannual World Cup. The rules, laws of the land, laws of the game, are a bit easier to follow. The objective is to use anything but the hands to move a spherical ball to the opposing goal. Each team has 11 people, 2 periods of 45 minutes each, and a tie-breaking period of 15 minutes to achieve as many points as possible. There is one referee, assisted by up to 2 other assistant referees. The players move around in the rectangular field, similar to gridiron football, aka standard pitch, measuring 105 by 68 meters. Club football's popularity at the college/university levels depends on the country. In the United States, its popularity isn't enough to offset Gridiron's revenue-generating scheme. This is why the U.S. Air Force Academy doesn't rely on club football for sports revenue. However, FIFA World Cup metrics yield a more consistent theme. Tariq Panya Panja, Tariq, if you're listening to this, sorry, in a June 12, 2018 New York Times article, cited how the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia set FIFA up for a $6.1 billion in revenues. Kurt Badenhausen, in a June 14, 2018 Forbes article, also estimated that FIFA would earn $3 billion in broadcast revenue, as well as generate 2.4 million tickets that would be sold ahead of the start date. Its popularity in movies also transcends cultures as well. Aside from a 1992 Ladybugs movie with the late Rodney Dangerfield, England produced in 2002 the Bend It Like Beckham movie featuring Parminder Nagra, that's right, the ER doctor, Keira Knightley, who was 17 at the time, and Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, that's right. This movie mixed in Indian culture with a key message involving pursuing one's passions even at great social risks. And yes, even if Parminder Nagra did or did not actually bend the ball, it was still an impressive scene. Looking across the planet, Stephen Chow, famous for Kung Fu Hustle, produced in 2001 the Shaolin soccer movie, which features former Shaolin monks who mix their heritage with an English sport to yield far above believable, yet remarkable outcomes. Per TopEndSports.com, the average club football player represented at FIFA World Cup Championships is about 182.4 centimeters and 77.2 kilograms, which yield a weight, technically mass in physics terms, to height ratio of 0.42 kilogram per centimeters. Let's consider an out-of-the-ordinary club football player. Neymar da Silva Santos Jr., aka Neymar, okay, wasn't that long, is famous not for his out-of-the-ordinary physique. He is famous for being one of the highest-paid athletes in the world, bringing lots of hope, but not victories, to Brazil for World Cup purposes, as well as demonstrating dives and crying fits. For more details, please look up Everything Wrong with Neymar by Adlul Kamal, published on February 11, 2019 on mindgoat.ca or Canada. If anything, Neymar's issues are reminiscent of the NBA's Portland Trailblazers. Givanildo Vieira de Sousa, am I saying that right? My Portuguese could be better, aka the Hulk, due to him resembling Lou Ferrigno, is also quite a respectable forward. But his alias doesn't mean much when compared to the refrigerator. Refrigerator also referred to as Biscuit because at one point he was one biscuit shy of 350 pounds. This also assumes that the fridge can actually catch the Hulk and tell him, "Who's your daddy?" That's also a big assumption too. These two sports clearly are quite different from each other when considering stop and go versus constant running, timeouts versus penalty kicks, as well as contact injury ratios. The NFL's injury data, published on NFL.com as of April 21st, 2021, shows about 3 injuries per team game. Club football, based on the nature of the matches, encourages people to keep events that could lead to injuries to as zero as possible. Speaking of injuries, how often do the teams fight each other? It turns out it's not too often based on existing laws and social pressures. There are some notorious incidents such as the NFL's 1989 fan-based brawls involving the Cincinnati Bengals and the Seattle Seahawks, as well as the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. What is it with those Cowboys? That same year, the Ajax Amsterdam club football team, thanks to the Iron Rod incident, were banned from the European football competition for a year. Let's not forget Poland versus Russia fan brawls at the Euro 2012 Club Football Championship either. Gridiron football, at least from collegiate levels, did produce several United States presidents. Dwight Eisenhower, JFK, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, and Ronald Reagan, known as the Gipper, thanks to his Knut Rockne role, the All-American movie. He was an actor. Jack Kemp was an NFL quarterback for several teams before being elected as a U.S. House Representative from New York State. Looking at club football, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the current dictator of Turkey, was also a semi-professional club football player in his town. Now, before you jump to conclusions, it's unfair to brand club football as a negative influence on politics. If club football produced one dictator, that means that club football has a dictator production ratio of 1 to 7.8 billion people. If anything, Gridiron football and its 5 U.S. presidents yields 1 to 73 million people. By the way, if you're wondering where soccer comes from, Stefan Szymanski, a professor of sports economics at University of Michigan, as cited in a July 11, 2018 Time article, points to England as a source of soccer, which coincides with the Cambridge Rules of 1863. The English stopped using soccer due to its popularity in its former swampy colony across the Atlantic. This is quite similar to the turn of events to cricket, since even though the English codified the laws of the game with respect to cricket, countries such as Netherlands, Brazil, and France have mastered it. Because those countries, they do much better at the World Cup compared to England. Gridiron's cultural impact goes beyond the sport itself. Just look at the Super Bowl halftime shows. The musicians often perform hit songs, either current or historic, written for other purposes. But FIFA's World Cup actually encourages music specifically written for club football fans. Just look at Pitbull and We Are One / Ole Ola, as well as Ricky Martin's, Ricky Martin, that's right, the former Menudo singer, The Couple Life, as well as the song called Vida for his 2014 performance at the World Cup in Brazil. And by the way, The Cup of Life, he and I think it was Desmond Child ended up writing the song together for the 1998 World Cup in France. But NFL also encourages originality in a different way. Halftime shows commercials. Think about it. Just look up the office linebackers. I'm an enforcer, man. Don't nothing go in this house that I know nothing about. Try to check some fools. Give them the pain. Going back to ratios, with the NFL's average weight and height ratio of 3.32 pounds per inch and FIFA's average weight and height ratio of 0.42 kilograms per centimeter, how do they compare? When you compare the two of them together, it's clear. Let's see, what type of ratios Gridiron encourages. Basically, people like the fridge. Given injury rates, does increased weight to inch/kilogram to cm ratio equate to more violence? That's really a good graduate study topic for someone studying sports economics at University of Michigan. But if Andrei Rusumov is any indication, Andre the Giant, or Fezzik from the movie The Princess Bride, his cast members from the Princess Bride movie often refer to him as a gentle giant. It's clear that club football, with its lower cost of entry, remains more popular population-wise compared to gridiron football. But it's not universally popular. Although the Chinese came up with Kuju, table tennis and badminton is more popular there than club football. Gridiron may be fun to watch for some people, but for a good portion of the world, the halftime shows and commercials are more relatable. Club football may have its share of hooliganisms, but FIFA World Cup gives national teams the opportunities to transcend national chaos, as Egypt forced Brazil to work for its points during the 2013 World Cup, despite the Arab Spring preventing their players from practicing with each other prior to the World Cup. Since music is more prevalent than TV, thanks to radio across the world, I'm all for 2, 3, 4, allez, 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 go, 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 allez, allez, allez. All right, Kevin Bacon time. By 3 degrees of separation, thanks to Walter Camp, the NCAA, and NFL, all the college gridiron fans, such as the Roll Tide Nation, really should complete a pilgrimage to Yale University and learn Bula Bula. Thanks for listening. If you have any more questions or have any suggestions about other topics you'd like me to chew on, scroll and type away in the comments section. And more importantly, come to your own conclusions about these kinds of topics. Think for yourselves. Until next time.